Okay, we'll do those. House will please come to order. All right, members, as you can see, we have large screen TVs in the chamber. We're preparing for committee of the whole on the redistricting bill. Please refer to the amendments page on the LSO website for the amendments. You will note there is amendment that changes the or actually is kind of a, I guess, a replacement bill for the committee bill. And we have to take them up in the order of the bills of the amendment numbers. So it would be handier to take that one up before we spend a lot of time on the other work, but we will take them up in the order that they were provided. There probably will be, kind of as the explanation is given on the bill by Representative Duncan and Representative Yin, they'll walk through some of the discussions that were had during the interim and why they reached the conclusion they did with the bill. That might help inform you as we go forward. Right now, we're going to take care of some business while we get our LSO staff here before we can convene into committee of the whole. So committee reports, standing committee reports.
House Bill 33, sponsored by Labor, Community Health Services, Continued Redesign Efforts, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 33, Community Health Services, Continued Redesign Efforts. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Connolly, Fletner, Hallinan, LeBeau, Ottman, Romero Martinez, Stivar, Wharf, Wilson. Representative Wilson, Chairman.
Members, just stand at ease for just a moment. We're making sure we understand how we're going to support it during the redistricting discussion by our staff. All right. Committee of the whole? No, let's just go to redistricting. All right, members. As we stated yesterday, we're going to go into committee of the whole to do the redistricting bill, and then depending on how long that discussion goes, we may actually do a few more bills. The majority floor leader thinks we have time on committee of the whole. Keep the pipeline going, or we're going to get clogged up here next week while we're doing the budget on committee of the whole. So with that, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Representative Crago. That's over. That's dead. That's the goal. Good.
Okay, thank you. Committee of the whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 100. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 100, sponsored by corporations, redistricting of the legislature, an act relating to state legislative districts. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 100, redistricting of the legislature, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Brown, Connolly, Nyman, Newsom, Obermueller, Paxton, Summers. Excused, Representative Harshman. Representative Paxton, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Paxton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Bill 104 do pass, and turn the explanation over to my good friend. I forgot what district you're from.
Just for clarification, Chairman Paxton, is it House Bill 100?
Correct.
Representative Duncan, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every 10 years, our state constitution requires that the legislature redraw state legislative districts at the first budget session following the federal census, Wyoming Constitution, Article 3, Section 48. Management Council assigned redistricting to Joint Corporations Committee and established the initial guidance. We wanted the public input and a process plan. The census delay caused us not to start until mid-August. We adopted our core redistricting principles at the August committee meeting. The principles were: number one, election districts should be contiguous, compact, and reflect a community of interest. This is a federal requirement. Number two was the population of election districts should be substantially equal, with the range of deviation not to exceed 10%. Number three, to the greatest extent possible in establishing election districts, A, county boundaries shall be followed. B, census blocks should be followed. 4, the plan should be avoid diluting voting power of the minorities in violation of the Voting Rights Act. This relates to our tribes in Fremont County. Number 5, the House shall have 60 seats and the Senate shall have 30 seats. 6, consideration shall be given to the 2 contiguous House districts in each Senate district. And 7, significant geographical features should be considered in establishing districts. Over the course of the interim meetings, several submissions were received from the public, regional representatives, individual legislators, and most were finalized by our county clerks. We saw 60-30 plans, I-80 compromise plan, regional plans, a 56-28 plan, a 61-30 plan, and finally a 62-31 plan. The proposed 62-31 plan was easily the best option to ensure equal and fair representation for the entire state. It balances the requirement for more representation for those areas which have grown against the prospect of less representation for the least populated areas. It slightly decreases the average district size, thus, in theory at least, providing every citizen with a larger voice in who their legislators are. It provides for more districts to be closer to the ideal size than any other plan we have looked at. And to continue, I believe, with more data and maybe an override view of our maps, I turn it over to our representative from Teton County.
Representative Yin, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to try to be very good about not using representatives' names. But, you know, it is a bunch of shapes on a map, and identifying them by number is very difficult. So I'll try to do my best. But basically, I do want to talk about how we went through to get to this map specifically, and all the maps that we went through to get to it as well. Members, you have before you the quote unquote 62 plan. Thank you, Michael Swank from LSO. I just used the name immediately. My apologies. So the Corporations Committee split the plan into regions. And what many of you know is that we assigned these regions a region representative to come back to us and just take charge of how they distribute, how they want to draw those maps in their individual regions, meet with their constituents, meet with their legislators, and then come back to the committee with how they want their region to be disposed of. What we discovered throughout the process is that there are many places where these regions overlapped, or people had differences of opinion on who should belong in which region, for example. So we ended up having to deal with each of these inconsistencies from these regional plans that didn't fit together. So they were essentially like puzzle pieces that didn't fit together over time, and then have the committee decide on how best to deal with it. So I'll go through each region at a time. And if Michael Swank can just start with region number 1, and we can talk about each region numerically, if he remembers which each region was. I believe region number 1 was Laramie County. So Laramie County was probably the last region to actually get settled, because a lot of the discussion was around between whether Laramie County would have a district that shares with Goshen County. And if you've looked at the list of amendments, there will be an amendment even coming forward to change a look at what that means already. So Laramie County had, I believe, the correct population for 10.4 representatives. So either you would fit 10 you could theoretically fit 10 representatives within deviation in Laramie County, or you could even fit 11 representatives within Laramie County in a 60-person plan. And it's so this became one of the contentious points. So we can zoom into Cheyenne and just go through each of these districts by themselves. So the black outline is the existing district boundary, and each of the colored shapes is the new district boundary for each of these districts. I believe, let's see, which ones do we want to start with? Again, they're just going to be numbers, so I don't want to identify each specific member that currently represents these districts, but you have a representative that represents north of the south side. So there's the railroad line. And so northwest of Cheyenne, where you see the word Cheyenne on Google Maps, that population has shifted. Maybe not, apologies. So trying to go through a map and just identifying individual shapes is very difficult. This is one of the areas where we added one of the 2 new House seats. And so there is a district that is open that currently has no sitting member in it as well. And so that is just, I guess, the best example of how Laramie County has changed. And depending on the amendments, it's going to shift again. So you'll have to see that comparison when it comes. So let's go to the next region. Mr. Swank. So a lot of talk was whether or not Laramie and Albany County should share a district. And so Albany County came to us many times to say that they were not interested in sharing a district. And it made sense because they have enough of a population to support 4 districts, and whether it's a 60-person plan or a 62-person plan. So they came to us after meetings with their legislators and meetings with their constituents, and came up with the plan that you see forth. You can zoom into Laramie, the town, the city, and just see how it looks now. Again, the black lines are the existing borders, and the colored shapes are the new borders. I believe it's a little difficult to say because there are 2 colors that look very similar. This dark green line is one of the district borders, and then you have the outside of the dark green line is a different district. And let's move on to the next region. So this is Natrona County. Originally in our 60-person plan, Natrona County was only Natrona County districts. In this new plan, our 62-person plan, because of the population shift in Natrona County, we added a new district here. So you have this shared district between Natrona County and Converse, covers east of Casper into Glen Rock, and it follows on the eastern side of this district, I believe, a school district boundary to maintain that as the boundary for that district. And then the clerks, of course, and the legislators met again, because based on taking this new district, they had to shift all the districts in Natrona County. And I would let the Natrona County folks speak to you on that if they have any thoughts on how that turned out. Again, let's zoom into Casper a little bit. And you can see the shifts from the black lines to the colored shapes of how the districts have changed. So some changed significantly, and one or two kind of stay mostly the same. So next region. So region 4 is Fremont County. The biggest issue here is that this is our only minority majority district in the whole state. What that means, a minority district is a district that has, if there's a location that has enough of a minority population to make its own district, if you try to crack that district apart, it's a violation of the Voting Rights Act. And the idea that a minority population, if they have enough of a population to be able to choose their own representative, they should be able to have a district that does that. So House District 33, I believe, is the district that fulfills that. And this is a significant part of the reservation. And I believe it's more than 2/3 of a Native American population. And so because of the shape of this, it does affect the shape of the other parts of the district. So you have a Lander district, and you have a Riverton in city district, and then you have a rest of Fremont County district. The northeast corner of Fremont County is the Shoshone-Lysite area. This portion in the last census redistricting was put in a basin district. And so the Fremont County delegation was fairly okay with, while they were unhappy about it, I believe they were fairly okay with still having that in the basin district. There was concern of, because of the loss of population in the basin, of putting in a portion of Missouri Valley. So if you are driving from Du Bois to Shoshone or Du Bois to Casper, for example, there's a road where you could cut across without going through Riverton. And there's population there that was considered to move into the basin while still being able to keep everyone in deviation. But many people didn't want to do that if they didn't have to. And in a 62 map, that wasn't necessary because the basin was able to stay in deviation without moving into other counties more than it currently is. So we'll go into the next region. Buffalo and Sheridan. So in the 60-person plan, Buffalo and Sheridan together, Johnson County and Sheridan County together were able to maintain district lines within their boundaries. In a 62-person plan, based on where the new districts were put, essentially some of the population in eastern Sheridan County had to move somewhere. It didn't necessarily have to be in eastern Sheridan County. I think to the committee and to the legislatures, that is what the committee decided upon. And I know that Sheridan County and Johnson County are not quite happy with it. And again, there's an amendment for that as well. The issue was that in a 62-person plan, the population would become over deviation. So you'd have more than a 5% in at least one district to be able to only stay within the Johnson County and Sheridan County borders. And so that became the area that ended up going through there. So again, black lines are the existing districts and the colored lines are the new ones. So we can move on to the next region. So this region, I think many of you may know, was an area of contention. We did have county commissioners from Weston County asking to be kept whole every single meeting. We also had folks from the surrounding counties saying that they would prefer that you didn't make Weston whole because there's side effects in the existing county. So previously Crook County by itself cannot hold an entire district's worth of population. So it had previously gone into Weston County. In the 62 map, because the committee decided to keep Weston County whole, which it did go back and forth on a couple different times. As a result, if it doesn't go into Weston, it had to go into the only other district that it borders, Campbell County. So the committee worked with the Campbell County clerks and legislators to bring forth what it looks like now. So Campbell County, while one of the districts also goes into Sheridan County, it also means Crook County pushes some of the district boundaries across by it because Crook County goes into Campbell County. So we can go to the next region. So this is basically you have the rest of the eastern part of the state. You have Converse, you have Niobrara, you have Goshen, you have Platte. So Platte, for example, is another one where you didn't have enough population for exactly one. So it had to take population from somewhere. In the map until the very last meeting, it went into Goshen County. So Goshen County was split between Goshen, Laramie, and Platte. In that meeting, the committee agreed that Platte would pull the rest of its population from northern Laramie, and that would leave Goshen County with only one split between Laramie County and Goshen County. The Niobrara ended up, because Weston and Niobrara, the population in Niobrara is essentially enough to almost have within zero deviation with Weston County. So Weston County is kept whole with Niobrara County. Niobrara County, as members of the Education Committee knows, preferred that it wasn't with just Weston County because it feels like it gave Weston County a high electoral advantage of electing someone from Weston County. And then Converse County used to be split three ways. So you can see in the black, Platte County's district used to go into almost into Douglas or into Douglas, and Campbell County's district came in from the east side, taking a bunch of that northeastern rural area of Campbell County. And then the rest of that was a Campbell County only district. So in this change, you have that shared 61 district that's in between Natrona and Converse, and then you have the Douglas side of Converse County being kept as a whole district. So they're only split two ways instead of three. And then we can move on to the next region. So the Bighorn Basin area did lose a significant number of population. And so one of the struggles with keeping a 60-person plan was that either one of the basin districts had to pull from a neighboring region. And one of the difficulties with the basin is that it is surrounded by mountains and on pretty much every single side. And so the only real place that you kind of squeeze out becomes into Fremont County. And so as we discussed, that Missouri Valley was considered as a possibility of taking that position from Fremont to try to even out the districts in the basin. In the 62 plan, it ended up that the basin did not need any new population outside of their region and were able to stay within their region without spilling out into anywhere else. During the committee meetings, we did consider leaving the basin outside of deviation just because the geographical boundaries made it so distinctly different than a lot of other places. Meaning that because there was only one real way out, it felt like disenfranchising just one set of folks to try to pull through three different counties into a fourth county more didn't feel appropriate. And so in a 60-person plan, we did consider leaving it outside of deviation, but not every committee member was interested in doing that. So there were committee plans, and there's even a personal bill that has one where it takes a significant chunk of Fremont County. And there was also talk, so if we scroll to the northwest a bit into Yellowstone, there was a member of the public who lives in Yellowstone that was particularly interested in having Yellowstone be in one person's district. So about 400 people live in Yellowstone, 300 people live in the north end of Yellowstone, 100 people live in the Teton portion of Yellowstone. In some of the maps, Park County, the Park County district has all of Yellowstone. We ended up just keeping it split because that member of the public, when they learned that it was all of Yellowstone just in the Park County portion of Yellowstone, they weren't necessarily satisfied with that either. And I think the committee was okay with just leaving it as the status quo. So we can go on to the next region. So this is Region 9, Carbon County and Sweetwater County. So between Carbon County and Sweetwater County, there was a population loss. But there's also this interface between Region 9 and Region 10, and that's House District 18. And so in this existing map, House District 18 shared a significant portion of both Sweetwater County, Uinta County, and Southern Lincoln County. And this is one where it caused a bit of a kerfuffle between the region that I'm in, which is Region 10, and Region 9, on how best to separate those two out. There was a map where that was decided by reducing the region's district count. So House District 47 actually moved by leaving the region in total. So there was I think it was about almost a half district's worth of population that Region 10 argued either needs to move somewhere else. And we weren't interested in Region 10 of shifting our population boundaries from our community of interest to make up for that loss of population in the rural areas. The 62-person plan is a plan that was able to keep House District 47 in there. There are, of course, other plans that keep House District 47 here. And they significantly affected Region 10 because that's where the population would have to come from to make up for the district change population in Sweetwater County and Carbon County. So the districts kind of actually shift here a lot. So House District 47 takes up a lot of the rural area of, I believe it is House District 17, which was Southern Rock Springs. At least I hope I'm saying that's the right district. And so that got shrunk into being just a South Rock Springs district. And then you have the North Rock Springs district take up a little bit more of North Rock Springs that was previously occupied by House District 18. There were some shifts in the Green River area in this map, and you will see an amendment that I'm a co-sponsor on, because what happened in the very last meeting is that we accepted changes from the clerks who wanted to clean up some lines. And what happened is they inadvertently moved a line where somebody in this body lives. And so there is an amendment to correct that. And we didn't notice it on the committee because we just had thought that it wouldn't have happened with these cleanup lines and that they were just cleanup lines, and we just ended up missing that part. So we'll go to the last region, Region 10. So Region 10 is Sublette, Teton, Lincoln, Uinta. Folks in Uinta County that we heard wanted to put a part of Evanston that historically was in House District 18 into the Uinta County House District. So we have this portion, I think they call it Red Mountain, and it's put into the Evanston District. And so that is the biggest shift in that part. And then to do that, there's some shifts around between House District 18 and 19, which was the other Uinta County only district. And so then you still have this House District 18, which changes its borders in Southern Lincoln County. And this is to make up for population that it has to gain based on the other shifts in the districts. Sublette County also lost a significant number of populations. So if you zoom out on Sublette County, you can see House District 22, which is that black line in Sublette County, went into Bondurant, the northwest corner of Sublette. Because of the loss in population for House District, I should know this number, 20, it had to encompass the rest of the population Sublette. So House District 20 expands to keep Sublette County whole. Because it still doesn't have enough for a full district by itself, it goes down south into LaBarge. And so this is a school district that shares with Sublette County. So we figured that part of the district makes sense to join together. The hard line between Southern Lincoln County and Northern Lincoln County is a portion of Lincoln County that to get to Northern Lincoln County, you have to go through Idaho. So Lincoln County considered this a pretty strong community boundary. And so we have this line here where there's no population even in that little part that goes into on the southern, on that middle line where that road is that goes in from Idaho. There's no population there. So the line is basically a straight line to where the population starts existing. So all the population in Northern Lincoln County is separated by this north-south boundary. And so House District 21, which is the Afton, Thane, and it goes into Etna a little bit, is one district in Northern Lincoln County that is Northern Lincoln County only. And then you have House District 22, which had to make up population that it lost from Bondurant. However, it didn't have to, it actually grew a lot of population in Alpine specifically and in this Northern Lincoln County area where it actually shrank boundaries. And then going into Teton County, we shifted the lines around a little internally in Teton County. The town of Jackson grew. So you see a little part of the north end of Jackson ends up moving into House District 23. And then we just reconfigured the lines a little bit in House District 22 to make all the numbers work okay in a 62-person map. And then, like I said, again, the southern part of Yellowstone stays in House District 23. And I believe that is the entire map, and willing to answer any questions and have anyone else talk about the region if they would like. Oh, and maybe we can just bring up the amendments, the proposed amendments really quick, just so people can see the difference, but I won't be the ones to explain the amendments, but I just wanted to have that up so you can quickly see the difference between what is being proposed in these amendments versus what we have in the current committee plan. So this is one where the biggest change is Goshen does not go into Laramie anymore. There isn't a Goshen-Laramie County district. It also means that Weston County is split again. So it's a Crook County, Weston County district, and then you have a Weston, Niobrara, Goshen, which is the status quo for that district. And then you have a Campbell County almost whole. Right now they go into Sheridan County in that amendment. So the difference, as I had mentioned earlier, is again, it makes a lot of difference on whether Weston County was kept whole. That made a whole bunch of changes, which you see as an amendment to go the opposite direction. And then okay, so this is as I said, Sheridan County and Johnson County were able to be kept whole in the 60-person plan. In the 62-person plan, they had to go over deviation. So I'll let them actually discuss this one more themselves, and I will leave that to them. And then again, this is the one where we had revisions from the clerk that we just accepted without realizing there was a sitting member that ended up getting put out of their district in that version. And so we'll have that discussion as that amendment comes as well. And so those are the maps again. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Thank you, Representative Yin. Well done. I think we'll move on to the amendments. Mr. Speaker, I apologize.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So members, I know many of you followed this, and it was a lot of effort. And a lot of you followed it went to many meetings, traveled to those meetings, gave testimony, worked at maps in your own communities. So, and I made mention of our county clerks when the Malcolm was here last week, Mr. Irvin, excuse me, I used a name on the floor. My apologies, when the head of that association was here, and I thanked him, and we'll thank them hopefully when they're here in person at some time, all of them. But a lot of work has gone into this. And I know there's been frustrations in certain areas, in certain communities, maybe miscommunication or lack of communication or stuff. But that was all preseason. That's all preseason, folks. Now we're in the game. This is the second inning. First inning was in the committee. This is the second inning. And we're just at the top of the second inning. So this is where we get to do the work of the people. This is where we get to do it. Let's not look backwards at where we thought things didn't go right during the process, or we thought it could have gone differently. Let's look forward to providing equitable representation through our redistricting plan for the citizens of Wyoming. Now, some of the challenges we've had have been differences in thoughts between the two chambers, because this is a redistricting plan for the state of Wyoming. It affects the entire legislature. And I'm visiting with our colleagues down the hall about how we can kind of do our best to minimize the frictions that could occur if we come with very different approaches. So you might see some amendments by third reading, which will absolutely hold the House position, but we may take no position on what the other body does. That way we don't end up in a loggerhead with the other body over things that really are theirs to decide. And I'm talking about nesting, talking about those type of items. So you may see some things that come along, but I urge us all, let's not get hung up on how things have gone. Let's focus on where we are right now. You're going to start seeing amendments. Those amendments are being brought by communities and sometimes multiple regions working together. Not all regions felt like they had the same kind of access to the process. It was challenging, but our committee did good work, had to make choices, and they brought us a plate. They set the table. Now we get to actually decide how it's served up. It's in the second inning, folks. There's a lot of process to go. Let's not get crossways with each other or the process or the past. Let's keep marching forward. So and last, if you want to know who put probably more hours on Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday morning, and there were committee members that were doing that too, including the chairman and the chairman and the minority caucus leader. They certainly put in lots of hours. But that gentleman sitting up in the front corner, our LSO staff, Michael Swank, I can tell you, when we would send him a request, he was turning them around at all hours of the day and night. And there's other folks in the staff, and we'll recognize them all when we pass this bill out of this house. But he's sitting on this floor right now, and he's going to try to work your amendments so you can have them up for second reading and third reading and hopefully final passage of a bill. But the time and the hours and expertise that he's put into this, we owe him a debt of gratitude. And we're not even done yet. Like I said, we're in the second inning. But Mr. Swank, thank you very much.
Anything further, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So members, let's go to work. Let's respect each other. If you're going to change something that changes another district, you got to be talking to those folks. And if you have concerns within your own district, please talk to the members in your district. We can work together with this. Some of these districts will have 10 people that are at the table. My county has 5. Some of you, Niobrara County, it's a caucus of 1. He can sort that out. But what we do with our other districts affects his community. So let's make sure we take into consideration those folks, our neighbors. You know, they say that, you may have heard me say this, good fences make good neighbors. No, good people and good intentions make good neighbors. The fences are just a product of hard work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's go to work.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just likewise, I'd like to thank the committee for all their hard work. And as we debate remember this is committee of the whole, you know, anybody that has a major plan change, and I was hoping they'd be able to be brought here, but it's just not time enough. So you might go to the mic and say, you know, why you might bring another amendment and what it might look like. It might help the body understand. as we move along. So thank you.
We're now on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill number 100. And so to start, this is a group effort. It has been working over and over since almost day 1 of committee. This amendment was already moved a couple times. It failed. Different versions of this amendment has moved several times, but now it has got the more members of the body involved. And so what I want to work on is, first of all, a little bit of an explanation of how this process works. You need to remember, when it comes to any part of this map, visualize with me a puddle of water, just a small little puddle. And if you drop a pebble in this water, you have these ripples that come out. So every time you drop a single pebble, you have these ripples. So if you look at these maps, anytime you move even a single line anywhere whatsoever, you have a ripple. And it affects every single line or every single part throughout the map. So if you're within your county and within your county barrier lines, you're fine. But the minute you have to share outside of that county line, or another county shares within your county line, and you move any line anywhere, you have, just like that puddle, you have a ripple effect. So anytime you have any movement at the very top right-hand corner up there, it will ripple all the way down, or it'll ripple all the way out. So that's why this process was extremely complicated. People kept saying, well, why can't we get our map done? Why can't we get our map done? It's because if someone changes something in the right-hand corner, we can't do our map down at the bottom because we have to wait until everybody's settled and done and completed at the top. Because until they are completed, it will ripple all the way down and have effects all the way down in Laramie County. Same with across the rest of the side of the state. So starting at the upper corner in Campbell County, they qualify to have a whole county. That's what they wanted. They wanted to be whole. So what we did in this map is we took Crook. There used to be a little line. I wish I could carry my mic over there to see the little line that goes around right there in orange, sandwiched right there by green. That dark line right there, that used to be Crook. We've removed that piece out and we actually dropped it into Weston. So now you see that jagged line there between the green and the blue right there where the hand is. We've now taken that part and we've dropped it into the northern part of Weston. So what this is pretty much status quo. That's what we have now. That's what the House district looks like now. So then if we go further down, we'll wait for Mr. Swank. Weston County House District 2 currently goes Northern Goshen, which is the green and the blue, or the kind of pale green and blue. That is Goshen, Northern Goshen, and Niobrara and Southern Weston. That is status quo. That whole side and corner of Crook, Weston, Split, Niobrara Whole, Northern Goshen, and Southern Goshen. That is what we have right now. So that is what I'm calling status quo. I'm returning the House districts of 1, 2, and 5 back to status quo of what we are right now. The only thing I'm doing in Goshen is I'm removing what we call the puzzle piece, which is carved out several, 3 different districts within the town city districts of Torrington. And we currently have this long little strip down the eastern side of Goshen County that is currently Laramie County. We took that out. Then we went and took Platte County, and they have to share, and currently they're in Converse. So what we did is we just dropped them down into northern Laramie County, about 200 people or so. So that's where they are at. Now, the current map that you saw earlier that was split with Laramie County and Goshen County, we took those 2,000 people, we gave them to Laramie County, and then that way it was able to split out two representatives that had to run against each other. It was enough to be able to split them apart so that they are now split and they don't have to be within the same district. So now they're split, and that's the new map for Laramie County. So if you could blow that up, Mr. Swank, so you can see those. And I'm going to leave the mic so I can point. This is hard to see right here. This is a separate district. All one, it's now two. So for those that couldn't hear me, that lower part right there, it's kind of a dark gray. It used to be all one with the one to the left. It's now two separate districts. So that now has split two of our representatives that used to be combined. They're now split. The other controversial district is now redrawn. It's not a finger anymore. It's more of a jagged line. So it looks better. So that's cleared up over to the right, Mr. Swank, or east, I should say. So you can see that's cleaned up a little better as well. And the only other thing that I didn't clean up with this amendment, if you go up to Sheridan County and Campbell County, is we did not take Sheridan County out. That's about 200 people, because there's another amendment coming after this one that will clean that up. So I left that to the Sheridan County people to fix that. So that's the crux of my amendment. It keeps everybody the way it is right now. It's completely within deviation, and it solves all the way down the eastern side. It cleans up the Laramie County controversy, and it keeps the rest of the east side of Crook, Weston, and Goshen all status quo. And I would invite any of my other colleagues that helped with this to please give their 2 cents.
Thank you, Representative. Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd ask you to support this amendment. And members, I'll speak for my community, for Campbell County. As you heard, we're at 4.89 representatives. And it certainly was felt strongly in my community that keeps us well within deviation. Now we're even closer to that when we're at the new, at the 62. So we have always we've had a share for the last 10 years with Converse County. That's House District 3, the one that I represent. And because the 62 changed the share to Natrona County, we have fewer options. So and obviously Crook County in the corner state only has 2 options. So our community certainly wanted as little churn, and you'll hear this word in other communities, as little churn as possible, as little change within the districts, particularly the urban districts in our community. And that was a month-long discussion within our community, multiple meetings in public, at the commissioners' chambers, et cetera. And there's a very strong sentiment about that. But that means that you go back to basically where we are today on the eastern side with Crook, Weston, Niobrara, Goshen. And obviously, as the good vice chair said, it cleans up Goshen even more. And then when you look at the map that we saw up the original plan, actually it cleans up Converse too. So we have fewer counties, split fewer ways, Campbell County being one of those counties. We have fewer people we're sharing. In the Converse, we still have this we have a new share with Sheridan, but that we have the opportunity to address that if the body so chooses. So I would ask for your consideration and support for this. I think now there'll be folks from Laramie County, because this is a ripple, as the good vice chair said. There'll be folks from Laramie County said, hey, I don't like the way the Laramie County lines ended up. Please adopt this plan and then work on that plan for your community. Because that's how we sequentially improve this. Get one area solid, and then continue to work on the next one. Because, and that Weston County line now, because now Converse is out of the equation with the 62, with that Weston County line is what makes that decision point. So I'd ask you to adopt this map, consider the rest of the amendments, and then of your community, i.e. Laramie County, or maybe it's the Platte County folks or whatever, wants to make adjustments, please work within that. Because this is a four region approach. 4 regions are impacted by this. The fourth one is the Sheridan Johnson, and they're going to bring their own amendment because we didn't want to, it has some other factors associated with it that these do not. So I'd ask you to support this. And then if you want to fix things within another county, Laramie or something, or Weston, please bring that in a subsequent amendment in second and third reading. So I'd ask you to vote aye on this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this amendment as well. To give you some background, being in the corner of the state up there, it's a little difficult. I did talk to my neighboring states in Montana and South Dakota, and they said they would offer some folks to fill in so that West can be whole, but they said they wasn't sure if they're really the people that I wanted. So, but they were glad to get rid of them, but that wasn't going to work. So the discussions that we've had, and it's been an effort in my part of the country to try to work with keeping Weston whole, but there's just so many dynamics to this that I had a meeting up there with the folks in my district and had a good conversation up there, and they are very willing to work this system right here, to work this amendment. They can see the value in it. It's not ideal to some of them, but by and large, the folks in my district at meetings that we had there were supportive of this, and they would work with this, and that this is something that they can definitely engage with and make this work for the state, and it helps all the way down. And again, it boils down to folks, and you've all heard this again, we all have to work together. And so they're willing to do that. And I just wanted to offer that information for anybody's concerned and through this whole process. But we do support this. I do support this amendment and would encourage you to do so as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did hear the previous speaker at this mic say, go ahead and say, hey, we don't like this one. So, hey, I don't like this one. I don't mind what happens up in the north. I mean, I'm in Laramie County. Whatever happens in the Northeast, good on you. I will just say that looking at the inside of Laramie County, and I'm not referring to anybody's personal home or any such thing, but the lines are awfully contorted in there. And I have heard so far this morning from people who are not in my district, but that don't like what happened to them. So I just figured that seeing as I was standing up already, when I was instructed to say, hey, I didn't like it, I would go ahead and say it. I would just say that on the map, you can see the pink part that comes down from Platte County into northern Laramie County, which that southern part of that pink is my current district, but I think that that's a fine decision. I've been seeing that coming for years with the growth in my area. And most of those people, rural folks up there in northern Laramie County, shop out at Chugwater anyway. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I have no complaint with that.
Representative Williams.
Rise in support of this amendment. It's workable for House District 2, and it's agreeable to our neighbors, with our neighbors to the north, agreeable with our neighbors to the south. I think it's good for our community, and I think it's good for Wyoming. I support this amendment.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, not for or against the amendment, but I heard some feedback that not everyone knows how to get to the maps. So Michael Swank, with your help, I just want to show how everyone can get there. It's at wyoledge.gov. You scroll to the bottom of the webpage. I'll let Michael Swank. Michael Swank, if you can get to wyoledge.gov, just to show how everyone can get to the map. So if you go to the main homepage, wyoledge.gov, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see about the legislature, or you'll see this tab on the third screen, and it'll have proposed plans. And so this is about the legislature. The redistricting plans are on the rightmost tab, and each of the ones with the globes are the ones with the maps. So for example, we're looking at amendment, committee of the whole amendment number 1. It's the one with the little globe next to it. You click on that and you'll get the Google map of all the districts. And you also have in front of you, you have the amendments with the population from each county and each of the districts in that amendment. So that's what the tables in front of you have as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Platte County down into Laramie County, House District 4, we have had no issues with any of our constituents in Platte. Platte's just happy to be whole. And so we'd love to be able to come down into the Laramie County. I don't see any issues with this. And I believe that this amendment definitely fixes some of the issues that were present. And I believe that it's definitely something that could make this plan definitely more palatable to quite a few different districts. Thank you.
Representative Fortner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe I speak for everybody in Campbell County that we're in full support of this amendment. And thank you for your efforts. Thank you very much.
Chairman Zwanzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so this amendment, it does affect 20 legislative districts, 11 of them in Laramie County. And so I certainly can appreciate all of our colleagues to the north talking about how great it is. And the benefit to Laramie County is we actually get to draw far below deviation and get almost 11 full districts. As you heard earlier, we're only entitled to about 10 3/4. This takes us to about 10.96. Ultimately, Platte County makes out the best in this map, just because everybody wants to draw, and Platte just, if anybody thinks they're getting a benefit, Platte County has been kind of agreeable to everything for this whole thing, and they're going to work out the best. But I do think it's interesting, and I just want the body to know that Laramie County, if this amendment goes through, we will probably continue to work on our map. As you heard from the good chairman of Labor Health, putting 2,200 more people back and trying to squeeze them back in our county has led to some interesting line divisions, many of which are beneficial. I don't think the 10 of us as a delegation of Laramie County have a strong push one way or another, but just to say that we've heard from several of our constituents this morning that if this amendment goes through, you will probably see a second reading amendment from our delegation that better aligns our communities within Interior Cheyenne.
Chairman Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess want to echo the comments of the last two good chairmen from Laramie County. I think all the conversation that I've heard about the counties to the north, that looks great to me. It's not my, obviously it's not my region, not my counties. So if everyone's on board with that, definitely support it. I think the impact in Laramie County under the existing map without this amendment, Laramie County looks more status quo. So the conversation about status quo for returning counties to the north more to a status quo, this shifts us very far away from our status quo. So I absolutely will be working on a second reading amendment inside of our county, trying to figure out what that should look like, hearing from constituents as well. So just want the body to continue to fathom that reality of what it's doing in Laramie County, so that when we come back on a second reading and try to address it, we can approach it with the same type of mindset and conversation that we are as we're adjusting the northern half of this map. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I just want to give a shout out to the people who have worked so hard on the committee, particularly, with all the different changes in the discussion. And so I'm going to be on the side of one person, one vote. I think this is looking good above Platte County there, but I think we still have some work to do. I just ask that we keep in mind, I don't know your county or your communities as well as you do. And just looking at the lines that I just saw just a little while ago of what has been proposed for Laramie County, we have a lot of, established neighborhoods as the city has developed over the years. And I'm very concerned about the diversity and the equal treatment of the various ethnic backgrounds. And so I just ask to keep that in mind. And certainly the various parts of the city. We had a lot of people from our southern part of our city and our county folks who came in and made their concerns known, and their inputs are much appreciated. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Representative Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, just a little clarification for the body. It's really nice to hear that all the districts in this amendment are within deviation. The committee worked pretty hard to keep that. And so I think any amendments coming in the future, it'd be nice to let us know that all these new districts that are created are within deviation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to maybe close out, it looks like everyone's pretty much done. I totally, completely support Laramie County. Come back on another reading, draw your lines. I completely don't know your county. I don't know your districts. I don't know your lines. So I'm 100% supportive of you guys. Get together, draw your lines, but do it together. You guys talk to each other, do it together, because that's what happened in Campbell County. That's what happened in Goshen County. That's what happened. I mean, we did our lines. We came back time and time again, redo our lines after the map was set exactly how we knew it needed to be, because no one in Laramie County knew 15th Street needed to be, the line needed to be here or here. So I totally appreciate and acknowledge that you need to draw your lines where they need to be, and never intended the lines to be permanent in this amendment. So I and I'm full of support, but I hope that you would support this amendment, allow it to go forward so that you guys can fine tune your districts how they need to be for your people. I would never tell you how to draw your lines for your people. So I hope you rise in support of this and we can move forward and make it better.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a comment about process, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, our standard fare is committee of the whole, next day, second reading, third reading. We start getting this more complex amendments and things, I'm going to check with staff. And if they need more time, because we're relying on them to do these maps and to do the bill that goes with the amendment, we can actually, lay it back a day. So we are prepared and you can do the work that needs to be done. We could even, and I know this is not everybody's desire. I would like to have it out of here before we start on the budget, certainly before, Tuesday of budget week. But if we even needed the weekend so that there was something complex or there was a community with 10 representatives that really wanted to sit down and hash something out, there's ways the process can help do this. So let's take incremental steps, continue to improve the bill. That's what we do. We make good bills better. We thank the Corporations Committee for their work they did, but now top of the second inning, folks. It's our turn. Keep moving along. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none and the question having been called, all those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 100, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted.
We're now in the order of business is Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 to House Bill number 1 and ask for your favorable consideration. Plain and simple, this is an attempt to keep keep our particular region similar to what it is now. To keep it, we've had to do some work within our region amongst our 4 different districts to balance out changes in population. Under the original plan, under the original 60-30 plan, we were actually dang near perfect. We were very close to the ideal number across all 4 districts. When we switched to the 62-31 plan, it put us over deviation by a couple hundred people. And so when the 62-30 plan came out, it included a portion of Sheridan County, which is in House District 40, which is in the district I happen to serve in, where the little hand is circling around right there, being shifted over to House District 52, which is in Campbell County. We've spent a lot, after the 62-31 came out, we spent a lot of time visiting with our people back home. We had an additional meeting. We met with the delegation from that particular region, and which, by the way, prior to the 60-30 plan coming out, we had many meetings amongst us with the public. We got together, figured out a way to make it all work. Following the submission of this particular plan under House Bill 100, we got together again and we had lots of conversations amongst ourselves, with our constituents, with our clerks. And what all of them have told us is they would like to keep that little corner of Sheridan County within Sheridan County, with either within House District 40 or somebody else within that particular area. Knowing that that puts us over deviation, and that what that really means is that they are underrepresented. That's what they want. They know the ramifications of that their vote, in theory, would not count as much as somebody else's whose rep is under deviation. All of us within our delegation, within the Sheridan Johnson County delegation, are generally supportive of this particular amendment. And at the end of the day, those people that live within and by the way, that's actually a school district. And so that's why the line's drawn exactly where it is. That's Sheridan County School District number 3, which is Claremont and Arvada schools. A lot of you've probably been through that neck of the woods. Yes, have relatives there, hail from there, grew up there. And those people actually, as far as a community of interest, they do a lot of their, even though they're in Sheridan County, they do a lot of their business in Johnson County. They all come to the Johnson County Fair for the most part. That's where they do their 4-H stuff. That's where they do, grocery shopping, et cetera. It's actually about from that roughly between Claremont, Arvada, it's roughly 30 miles to Buffalo. It's 40 some to Sheridan, and further to Gillette. And so most of them do their business there. That's their community of interest. And that's where they'd like their rep to continue to come from. And so I understand I'm asking you, if you look at the numbers and just to run through them, so we're being completely upfront about this. All of us are over deviation. All 4 of us are over the max, quote unquote, max number 4. Some of us more than others. We have to remember the deviation, and just a little bit of the way I understand it, and somebody else can get up who's actually on corporations, who probably knows a lot more than I do, can get up and explain. But really, we're talking about a 10% deviation between the smallest district and the district with the least amount of people and the district with the most amount of people. And so depending on what happens today, we may or may not have a district that has 5% minus deviation. It may be closer to 4.5, somewhere in that neck of the woods. I think it's 4.6 if all the amendments that are proposed today go through. And so what we're looking at is the math between 4.6 and what the biggest one on our proposed amendment number 2, which would be House District 40, which would be 6.2. So you add those together, and that's what the total deviation would be, which is obviously over 10%. What I'm asking you today is to really think about fairness versus pure numbers. We're talking about 300, roughly, I believe it's right at 378 people live in school district number 3 in Sheridan County. Out of a total population of 500 and some thousand. Over 500 and some thousand, much over 500 and some thousand. And so what we're asking is for those people to be placed where they asked to be placed. We weren't really, our particular delegation was not part of the idea to shift that over. Did it have to be done to keep us within deviation? Yes. But ultimately, we feel that fairness should control over just pure numbers. Does that mean we might face a challenge? It's possible. But to be honest with you, the only people that are being harmed under this particular amendment are our people. They are underrepresented because they would be entitled to an additional rep in that area if we stick to pure deviation numbers. And so they're the ones being harmed and they're the ones asking for it anyways. They believe that they will be served better by this plan that were proposed in this amendment than if they are shifted to a Campbell County seat. Simply because that's their community of interest. That's where they do business. That's where their kids do 4-H, and that's where they do county fair and schools and et cetera. They feel this is a better option for them. And so again, I think my focus is on fairness rather than pure numbers, and I'd gladly stand for questions.
Thank you. On Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, any discussion? Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2. Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, so I just want to give the pros and cons of the plan. So maybe just a little background on what we try to do in redistricting and the goal of getting the plus or minus 5%, why that exists. So redistricting plans have been in court for every redistricting since the one that determined that we had to have this one person, one vote rule based on the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And so we have this presumption that it fulfills that clause when it's when with regards to state legislative districts, when it's between a 10% margin between the largest district and the smallest district. So the easiest way to do that, of course, is +5, -5. If you go outside of that presumption of the 10% range, you do have the risk of someone suing because they feel like they don't have accurate representation in the legislature. So as the good representative from Johnson County noted, for them, they believe that it's worthwhile to have those communities. And even though it does have more population outside of that 10% range, what is currently in the map. The alternative to get within that 10% range is to adjust every district that is over -3% to reduce their deviations till it gets to -3%. And so then you have a deviation that's within 10% where it's +6 something to -3 something. The risk is that if we accept this map, there could be a risk of someone feeling that we still need to get within that presumption of the 10%, where we will have to adjust other districts. And so those are again, the pros and cons. We are the legislature. We decide what we want to do. Those are just the possibilities of what could happen based on the maps that come, based on the actions that come after we pass the map.
Thank you. Representative Larson.
Lloyd. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess my question would be back to the Corporations Committee for a little enlightenment. So I hear the proposal on this amendment and I get it and it makes sense. But there's this expectation that we stay within this deviation, and I think his argument is very well. But I don't think that argument would be, I think that we could replicate that argument throughout the state in various places. I think in my county and other counties, we could say we too have a similar argument. So my question is if we multiply this type of amendment and we have this excessive deviation, and I don't know if that's the right word, but if we're outside this 10% deviation in multiple places in the state, what does that do to us?
Thank you, Representative Yin. We're on Committee of the Whole, Amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the risk is that when someone files a suit, if there are multiple places that push us outside of a 10% range, those are just additional causes of actions to bring a suit against us. So the more possibilities of places where that is, the more that we have to be able to prove that each of those individual places that are outside the 10% range, we had a reason to do it that was worthwhile to override the one person, one vote rule. So it just means more reasons that within it, that there's a possibility of a suit.
Thank you. Vice Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, there is case precedent that it went as high as 16%. So it depends. As long as we stay and we have actual cause, due cause, we can get past the deviation. So there are different reasons and such, but it depends.
Thank you. Chairman Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I feel obligated to weigh in because I almost feel like personally responsible for this whole problem. I'm a representative in the Bighorn Basin where we lost a lot of population. And in order for us to fit under a 60 house plan, we were asking for a deviation that was negative, meaning our people were overrepresented. I'm also probably one of the few members of this body ever to graduate from Claremont High School, Sheridan County School District number 3, where I have a lot of family and friends, and spent not just last weekend, but the weekend before at basketball games and talking to everyone there. As what was presented by the bringer of the amendment is absolutely right. Very, very strong community of interest, in particular with Buffalo, as he correctly said. I played high school football for Buffalo as a graduate there. The issue on the deviation is one for this body, a policy issue for us to seriously consider. But it's a little bit different here with the Sheridan Johnson County plan, because those people are saying we are underrepresented with this deviation versus the people in the basin who were in the 60 plan overrepresented, which means what probably would have happened is people from Laramie County would have said, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong, and then the suit follow. The concept of this split of 10% has really bothered me in the state of Wyoming, and as I was appointed without my permission to the Corporations Committee, I lived through this. It's really difficult, right?
Point of order. Oh, never mind.
It's really difficult, right? In the Bighorn Basin, we are surrounded by mountains. I mean, in the community I live in, there's been days where we can't get out of the basin, and we'd have to go all the way north to Billings to try to get out. Likewise, where the majority floor leader lives, those communities run up and down long valleys with mountains and stuff on the sides. We've got a desert that people have to drive 2 or 3 hours to go see their constituents. It's really difficult in Wyoming to say we're going to fit in the same box as a state where the roads are every mile and it's a nice square that's divided up. It just doesn't work that well for us. So I would say keep an open mind about this deviation. The one thing I would ask, though, for the bringers of the amendment in a little bit of research I did regarding this, is that the last time the plan was reviewed, the door is open for a deviation. We just need to bring legislatively the findings for the justification of it. And I'm here to say that part of the justification for this is the fact that there's really no way to accommodate the Bighorn Basin with a fair plan. And so Sheridan County's taking the brunt of it. And Sheridan County's bringing something forward with a very reasonable approach to a deviation. And I would encourage support. I would encourage us to also beef up some of the language in the bill to help this bill if it is reviewed by the judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Minority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And more of a comment and kind of following on with the good chair of minerals about how to think about this. Well, first, I'd like to thank the bringers of the amendment, that they brought us an amendment where you're honestly willing to say to the body, we're willing to be underrepresented. To be honest, I'm not so sure that I'm willing to have you underrepresented, but you brought us one where you're willing to be underrepresented. However, when I look at the plan that comes out of the committee, and I don't even know where, and I'm sorry to you, whoever is in House District 18, I don't remember who you are, but I see that House District 18 is a -5%. So the reality is, and I think the bringer had mentioned to us, I'm not really sure if we're going to get within the 10%, but the reality is if we go with the amendment before us, where we have one district that is at 6.26 and one that's at -5, we're well over 11% out of deviation. So what we're being asked to do is say, okay, there have been some court cases where it's acceptable to be outside of deviation. I think one of those came from Hawaii, where you had to go across the islands. The reality is that we have to make an argument in favor of that deviation, but we have an alternative. The alternative that exists is the bill that came out of the committee where every single district is within deviation. We have the solution. So with thinking that it's just simply an easy argument, know that there is already a solution where no district is out of deviation. So just my thinking about it, my musing about how to think about this amendment because of those kinds of arguments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? We're on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2. Number 2, Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple of closing comments. Looking at the map, there are ways to get the deviation within 10%, even with having the numbers in ours where they are. We're moving some parts and pieces around probably the southwest part of the state. We didn't do that. We didn't go mess in somebody else's backyard. We stayed in our yard. And we're just asking you to give us a little bit over that number without affecting everybody else in the state who has put the lines where they want them. This is where we would like the lines for our particular region. And in closing, in any particular lawsuit that's brought, somebody's going to have to prove harm. In this case, it would have to be somebody really within our district that's going to have to bring the lawsuit and say, hey, we're underrepresented. We should have had an extra rep. And it's probably going to have to be somebody from that little square right over there where we're asking to put back in our region. Everybody else in the state is going to be technically overrepresented. We're going to be under, and we're just asking for that. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment. Further discussion on the amendment. Hearing, seeing none. Members, we are voting on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Members, if you'll join me in welcoming my wife. She made the trip down here from Green River and she's going to be here. She joined me on Thanksgiving and then on Valentine's is going to be here through next week. So welcome.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Members of 66th, if you'd look in the gallery, we have Leadership Carbon County with us, if they're still here. If they'd stand up. I guess they've left. Thank you.
We are now on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3. Representative Burt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move amendment number 3 to House Bill 100, and I ask for your favorable consideration. So what this is actually going to try to do is correct an oversight, as you heard earlier with the earlier presentation of before we got into this. It was just a simple oversight that our county clerks were trying to clean up the lines to follow probably better voting lines, and it was just a when it was submitted, the address cross function wasn't put together, and basically what this does is puts two competing representatives into the same one, and just puts it back to a previous, as you can see, the map's up. There we go. It puts it back to a previous map to make that change. It's pretty simple.
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So again, just as a reminder, this is something that happened on the very last day of our interim committee. We had revisions from the clerk, and I think it was just an oversight on everyone's part that the committee also didn't realize that the lines were that significantly different from what we originally had before the clerk revisions. So all this is just fixing that. And I would also ask your favorable consideration. And just one bit is that it only affects the Sweetwater County line. It doesn't affect it in any other county, and everything still stays within deviation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Ayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one more bit of information. It also keeps all districts within the deviation still, so no problem there.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment? Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be if this impacts District 47 at all?
Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, no, it does not. The only two districts that are shifted is House District 18 and House District 39 to where they were before the clerk's submission happened. So again, those are the only two districts that are touched. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to rise in support of this amendment just because I am House District 18 and want the body to know that I approve of this advertisement.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, question having been called, all those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 3 to House Bill 100, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. We are now back on the bill. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. On the bill itself, I think we need to take a deep breath and think about whether we really want to increase the size of the legislature. House Bill 100, as you know, would increase the number of representatives by 2 from 60 to 62, senators from 30 to 31. So the question is, what is the compelling state need? What is the compelling state interest to increase the size of the legislature? And there isn't one. And I will be bringing an amendment tomorrow to do what the committee said it was going to do in August, which was to retain a 60-30 redistricting split. And that amendment will be based upon the plan already presented and actually already approved by the Joint Corporations Committee as its backup plan, brought and drafted by the longest serving member of the legislature, who's on his 5th decennial redistricting at this point. So I think about that overnight. I don't know about you, but I have not had any constituent come up to me and say that the one big pressing problem to solve in our state is to have more members of the Wyoming legislature. I've just not had anyone come up and say that's what we really need for this state. When you look to the state to our southwest, Utah has one member for every 32,000 people, they have one member of the legislature. We have 90 members of our legislature spread over 576,000 people roughly. So 1 out of every 6,400 people you see on the street in Wyoming is a member of the legislature. Utah, it's 1 in 30,000. Nebraska, it's 1 in 42,000. Colorado, it's 1 in 57,000. Now, we are accustomed, because of our sparse population, to have diseconomies of scale, right? We have more sheriffs per capita than most places. But there's no compelling need for us to make that worse. We have 1 member for every 6,400 residents. If we adopt this 6231 plan, we will have 1 member of the legislature for every 6,193 residents. It's going the wrong direction. A year ago, we cut $430 million out of the budget, and that was painful. And we eliminated over 300 full-time equivalent positions out of our state government across all state agencies. And we said, this is painful, but you at the Department of Corrections, you have to get rid of some of your people. And we did that in the Department of Family Services, and they got rid of some of their people. In the Department of Health, they had to get rid of some of their people. And what's the message we send if we say, well, but when it comes to us, we're going to increase our size, we're going to increase our staff? I think it sends the wrong message. Because if we believe in limited government, we believe in smaller government, what's the compelling need? It's just not that difficult to draw the lines to have a 60-30 plan. So don't have the amendments not ready for presentation right now, but hopefully on second reading it will be. And thank you for thinking about that. Thank you.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I want to stand on in support of this 6231. I've created different ones of all sizes, but what compels me, the good commenter from the last, from appropriations, why would we do this now? Well, that's a good question. Maybe we shouldn't, I don't know. But what I want to offer to you is, do we want to try to maintain kind of our rural character? And do we want to maintain representation to the rural areas of Wyoming? Because that's what it boils down to. When you see these places lumped up all over, when you're throwing Saratoga in with Farson, and you talk about community of interest changes, and the more we spread that out, and the more we don't recognize that we are having a shrinkage. I'll admit we are having a shrinkage in rural Wyoming and an expansion in urban Wyoming. And this, I think, is a delicate compromise. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not. Can we get there? I think we can. But I think for me, the reason to do it is this committee spent a long time trying to find those balances, and this is the way they found it. Now, should they have made a hard choice and went 60-30? It's pretty easy to say that if your ox wasn't gored, pretty hard if your ox was gored. So it kind of just depends on how you came down on it. But I stand on in support of the 62-31.
Minority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Friends, I was the Region 2 rep to the committee. If there wasn't a member of one of the 10 regions on the committee, a member of the body was appointed to represent that region. And so I was the Region 2 rep, one of them, and went to many of the meetings. And I'll be honest with you, not all of them, I'll be honest with you, I was not a big fan of the 62-31 plan, and know that it's been out there since day one as an alternative on the website. You could take a look at it. And I wasn't afraid of it. I was not a fan of it, because I thought that going in that direction, we were afraid of doing the hard work of reconfiguring ourselves with 60-30. But over the months, I ended up agreeing that this is the best solution. And it's a solution, like the majority floor leader said, that does two things. So number one, and most important to me, is that there is the proportional representation. One person, one vote. It doesn't make a difference for what region that you're from, that your region is going to be represented equally. That's the most important to me. But then we came to we recognized that the reality is that our rural areas are decreasing and our more urban areas are increasing in population. What's the best way for us to move in order to accommodate that number one principle of one person, one vote, but also the kind of shift, right? The shift of our populations. And honestly, the 62-31 plan does that. It allows for our rural communities to keep the representation that exists now, while acknowledging that our urban populations are growing. So I'm not sure I love the amendments that we just passed, but I think we can work on it. But the 62-31 kind of allows us for the next 10 years to acknowledge that transition. So that's why I'm in favor. So I'm in favor.
Representative Yin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the committee at the last meeting decided to only sponsor one plan. I think that was a good decision because trying to have the idea that we would work on two different plans at the same time was troublesome. However, a good member of the Senate did present his own plan that he wrapped up as the personal bill. So I would advise everyone to just take a look. So if you don't like the 62 plan, the question is, what is the better alternative? Is a 60-person plan a better alternative? In that alternative, so we had 6 different compilation plans. So just imagine every time we had a new compilation plan of a totally statewide map, decided there was a huge part wrong for several people, we try a different one. And so that's why we had so many meetings and it went so long until the day before the session. In this alternative, even, it has the basin spillover at a pass. So you have a whole group of people that are going to choose to be represented by a representative that can't even reach them half the time. So again, we can say we want the 60 people instead of 62, but the question is that an alternative that the body can agree on? The biggest issue with trying to meet that deviation was, again, as the good majority floor leader said, there's a loss in rural population. And again, this 62 is an attempt at a compromise that, while it's not great for everybody, it's something that enough of us can agree on to move forward as a map for the next 10 years. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Paxton's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that House Bill 100 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 100 has passed the committee of the whole. At this point, members, we're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and address 3 bills: House Bill 39, House Bill 53, and House Bill 70. Let's stand at ease for 10 minutes. 39, 53, 70. Committee of the Whole will please come to order. Before we get started, just an update.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So the Committee of the Whole list is once again is 39, 53, 70. And then if we have time, I'll go to 4 and 33. So those that are running those bills, be ready. 39, 53, 70, 4, and 33.
Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 39. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 39, sponsored by Judiciary, pre-application determinations for licensing, an act relating to professions and occupations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 39, pre-application determinations for licensing, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Oakley, Olson, Provenza, Washit, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representatives Larson, Dan, Rodriguez, Williams. Representative Olson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Olson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 39 do pass. Folks, this bill comes out of your Joint Judiciary Committee, number 1 interim topic that was dealt with juvenile justice, really. And so this is a side piece that came out of our juvenile justice work. There's some other legislation regarding reporting later that you'll see that is probably the central work in that area, but this is the next little piece to it. This bill is actually really simple. The way I would summarize it is it codifies a process that already happens and exists in many of our boards, licensing boards. That's really all it does. So if you're applying through a board for a license, what we found out happens is folks will call, they may informally call a board and ask, hey, if I've got XYZ in my background, if I have this felony or these charges that I dealt with in the past, is that going to impact my ability to get a license? And of course, the board can't give any, at this point, they don't give any guarantee, but they do work with folks who call and try to help them understand that, you know, years down the road, after you get through school or whatever it may be, it might look different for you, or maybe sometimes it's a pretty clear answer like that. That's a type of offense that really doesn't impact our decision-making. So that already happens right now across many boards. What this bill does is codify that process and say, let's make that a formal process. Let's make it a formal process where if a person wants to, there's no requirement that you pre-apply for a license. You simply have the option to go through this process, contacting your board and figuring out whether you're going to waste your time and your money down the road. And then the last little piece of this is, well, actually 2 more pieces to it. One, down on page 3, lines 19 through 21, it says that a determination, so this is the predetermination made by the board, commission, et cetera, is non-binding. So that's really important. We worked with the boards over the interim that this was probably their biggest concern. They didn't want to make a predetermination, and then when the actual application came before them, they had different evidence that changed their mind, and they were bound by that first decision. So this is non-binding. So if they give that advice to that individual, you know, things would look good for you, go ahead and apply, or don't. It's non-binding. And then the last piece, ladies and gentlemen, is that we give rulemaking authority to those boards to make that process look the way they want it to look. So it may not look the same for everyone, Each board can design it. We talk to different boards. Some of them are more digital. They have digital applications. They have things up on their website. Others are still paper, pencil, all those little details. That's just up to the boards. No real change there. So just in driving the message home, we're really codifying a process that already exists. And I guess you could say without this bill, the process would probably just continue the way it does. In fact, if you talk to certain boards, they'll probably tell you we're already doing it. It doesn't change a whole lot. I guess from our standpoint, what we're adding to it is a more clear formal process that it will exist. And we're advertising this for folks. The whole idea of this is to not keep people out of the workplace, to get the licenses they deserve, and not spend a bunch of money and time, really, if it's not going to work out for them. So that's it. And I would take any questions on this little bill.
Is there any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Olson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 39 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 39 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration. Oh, Mr. Speaker, apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, 3 times in my 10 years here, I've been joined by the love of my life, my wife, and she usually comes down for one day because she's got, chores to do at home, lambing, feeding, everything else. But she happened to come down for the governor's prayer breakfast and for the first lady's luncheon. So if you'd help me in welcoming my wife of almost 31 years, Kelly Barlow, is up here in this south chamber.
The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 53. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 53, sponsored by Transportation, Military Department, Discrimination or Harassment Grievances. An act relating to discrimination and harassment grievances involving the Wyoming National Guard or Military Department. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 53, Military Department Discrimination or Harassment Grievances, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that House Bill 53 do pass. I further move the adoption of the standing committee amendment and turn the explanation of the bill and the amendment over to the good representative from the oil city.
Representative, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the House, I bring you House Bill number 53. This bill comes to you from the committee, the Transportation and Military Affairs Committee, and it's the product of a considerable amount of work and collaboration between the Wyoming Military Department and the Wyoming Department of Workforce Services. I can use those 2 names because they're in the body of the bill. Currently, our Wyoming State Code of Military Justice does not contain statutory language addressing sexual discrimination or sexual harassment claims in the same manner as the Federal Uniform Code of Military Justice Act number 138. Our Wyoming Military Department does not have trained internal people to conduct investigations into these claims. The department has in the past hired outside parties to help with these investigations, and unfortunately, that process has just proven to be unreliable, time-consuming, and quite expensive. So what this bill does is it creates a Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 138 like process for our Wyoming National Guard. The bill establishes a partnership with the Wyoming Workforce Services to counsel, mediate, investigate, and determine claims by employees of the Wyoming Military Department consistent with EEOC Equal Opportunity Commission guidelines and rulemaking. The bill creates a position within the Wyoming Workforce Services for this purpose and other similar problems. So if you go to page 2, it creates a complaint process similar to that which is found in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, again, Article 138. If you go to page 3, it establishes a formal partnership between the Wyoming Military Department and Workforce Services. If you go to page 4, it appropriates funds for the creation of a new position, which is also subject to the amendment. That one full-time equivalent position with Wyoming Workforce Services is there. Currently, they have 6 compliance investigators, and quite frankly, they're maxed out. And so if they're going to take this additional work, they need an additional person. Also, through the various rounds of budget cutting that we've been doing over the last 10 years, unfortunately, Wyoming Workforce Services has been on the receiving end of several of those cuts. And quite frankly, they need this extra person. This extra person will be cross-trained so that they're not only working with the military, but they're working with other departments. And it's a person that will be there to help our fellow citizens and our fellow workers. With regard to that, that is the amendment as it was brought out and it was discussed with regard to the timeline to make this effective immediately. The price increased a little bit, and I would just point out that that is a position for the next 3 years. So the completion of 2022, 2023, and 2024. So I would ask for your favorable consideration for this very well thought out and a bill that, quite frankly, a lot of people worked very hard on and is there for the protection of our people.
Is there any further discussion on standing committee amendment number 1 to House Bill 53? Seeing none, question having been called, all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1, please say aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. We are back on the bill. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Chairman Burkhart, do you have anything to add? Question having been called. All those in favor of Chairman Burkhart's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with a recommendation that House Bill 53 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 53 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Please.
Mr. Chairman, privilege of the floor.
Please proceed.
Apparently it was getting snowy in Northeast Wyoming because a lot of Northeastern Wyoming is here today, but it was planned. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could introduce Gillette area leadership folks who are all in the gallery. These are all business leaders and community members that are doing great things in our community, learning about our state, learning about government. So welcome these folks from Campbell County, please.
The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 70. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 70, sponsored by Blockchain, Digital Identity Protection, an act relating to digital identity. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 70, Digital Identity Protection, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Yen, Zwanitzer. Representative Olson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Olson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 70 do pass, and I will turn over the explanation of this bill to the good appropriator and our newest member of the Blockchain Select Committee.
Representative Stiff.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 70, impersonation of digital identity. What last year in Senate File 39, we adopted definitions of personal digital identity and organizational digital identity. So that was happened last year. What this bill does is two things. The first part of it is if somebody, thank you, impersonates, misappropriates, steals your digital identity, then this provides a civil remedy. You can go to court to get an injunction to stop that. And you can get damages, and it even provides treble damages. So it has real teeth to it. So you can imagine if you had an individual personal website that you do just for your personal use and someone tries to hijack that, this would give you a civil remedy to stop that. And if you have a small business where you've put a lot of effort into developing your website and your organizational identity, and someone hacks into your site, otherwise co-ops it, impersonates it, this gives you a civil remedy. The second part of the bill adds on to our spoofing statute that we adopted a few years back to expand the spoofing, which was impersonating someone using your phone number, to also include impersonating your digital identity. It makes it a misdemeanor. So this is, I think, a logical extension of the work we've done in the past, and I would ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Olson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 70 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 70 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill. Sure you don't want a privilege of the floor, Mr. Speaker. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 4. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 4, sponsored by Agriculture, water permits, livestock on federal land, an act relating to water. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 4, water permits, livestock on federal land, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendment. Ayes, Representatives Blackburn, Glosson, Eklund, Fortner, Heiner, Larson Dan, Western, Wharf, Winter. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Eklund?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a recommendation that bill number, House Bill 0004 do pass. And I further move the standing committee amendment number 1. And I'll fold the amendment into the bill as I explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll do the explaining on this one. So this is, we're changing a bit of the procedure on water permits for livestock on federal land. And really all the bill does is when a water permit is applied for, it has the federal agency as well as a permit holder on the application for the water permit. And that in a nutshell is really all the thing does. The amendments were worked out with the state engineers. Oops, not sure they're in there. The office that allocates water permits was there, and they word crafted a few things in there. If you look at page 3, line 14, after without, you insert seeking, and doesn't substantially change what we were trying to do. And then page 3, line 22, delete name change with and insert permit assignment accompanied by documentary evidence to, and that would be to the grazing evidence of the grazing permit. So that is the bill. If there are any questions, I'd stand for questions.
Chairman Eklund, I'm not positive you moved the standing committee amendment. If you could do that, please.
I believe I did, but, and I'd further move the adoption of the standing committee amendment number 1 to House Bill 4.
Thank you.
There we got it.
Chairman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I do have a question, which is kind of funny for those who know me because I don't usually do anything with water or ag. But I've often told people that one of the benefits of being in the legislature is that curious minds can find out interesting things. So I am just curious. Last year, 2 years ago, we had kind of a long discussion about the state be owning all of the water. So if I could just be informed, is this water the property of the state, but the federal government has the water rights, and so we're sending it out in both their names, just so that I understand clearly.
Chairman Eklund.
Yes, the water does belong to the state of Wyoming. The allocation is to the land, the user. And in this case, it will be the federal government, whichever agencies, there's a couple main ones, as well as the permit holder of the grazing permit. But the permit is from the state of Wyoming for the use by the federal government.
Are there any further questions or discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, question having been called, all those in favor of standing committee amendment number 1 to House Bill 4, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Any additional discussion on the bill? Seeing none, question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Eklund's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, to do so with the recommendation that House 4 bill do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 4 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 33. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 33, sponsored by Labor, Community Health Services, Continued Redesign Efforts, an act relating to public health and safety. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom was referred House Bill 33, Community Health Services, Continued Redesign Efforts. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Connolly, Fletner, Hallinan, LeBeau, Ottman, Romero Martinez, Stivar, Wharf, Wilson. Representative Wilson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies for taking a little time. I did not realize that we were up on this morning's bill already. So folks, I move House Bill 33 and ask for your, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 33 do pass. We have no amendments, and I will just explain the bill myself, seeing as we had made no further plans this morning. So colleagues, you will recall last year we passed House Bill 38, which was a bill setting a process for determining a prioritization of the money that the state spends on community mental health services. And throughout the interim, we've had a task force, we've had stakeholders, we've had agency folks, opportunity for all sorts of input, and they have been working really hard and have made some progress, but not quite enough to launch the new contracts July 1, which would be what the situation is if we just let it go as it's been planned. So this bill just tweaks a couple of changes of that bill. I will just go through the changes from, because otherwise it's the process that we looked at last year. On page 2, paragraph C, lines 7 through 10, we added some clarification of the definitions. Also on page 2, line 19, we raised the federal poverty level definition for indigent from 150% up to 200%. On page 3, lines 10 and 11, we clarified to make sure that we are covering the state level justice involved people that we wanted to access, not just people who have maybe been discharged, but people who are awaiting evaluation. These are the folks under Title VII who are awaiting determination if they're competent to stand trial. Obviously, they need some care. And then the maiden part of the bill, and why we really want this bill, is starting on the bottom of page 3. You can see that we've inserted a few more dates further out, September 1, 2022 and 23. And then on page 4, lines 15 through 17, we are pushing out the changes for 2 more years, both there and on page 5. It just wasn't ready, folks. We want to make sure that we do a good job of this and don't launch into something sooner than we're ready. So that is, I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
Is there any discussion on the bill?
And if there's no questions, Mr. Chairman, I would call for the question.
Seeing no people rushing to the podium and the question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Wilson's motion, then when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so the recommendation that House Bill 33 do pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 33 has passed the committee of the whole. And I don't know where our majority floor leader went. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee of the whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion carries.
Committee of the whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 100, do pass amended. House Bill 39, do pass. House Bill 53, do pass amended. House Bill 70, do pass. House Bill 4, do pass amended. House Bill 33, do pass. Representative Grego, Chairman.
Chairman Craigo.
I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Congratulations, Representative Craigo. Standing committee reports. Oh, actually, reading clerk, just hold on a minute. I have a privilege of the floor. Please proceed, Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the Leadership Casper participants who have come down to visit with us. We have Angela Anderson, Angela Dinas, Brad Hollinger, Justice Foreman, Holly Mann, Jacob Slingsby, Jennifer Graves, Carrie Smith, Leanne Parks, Mariah McCurdy, Linda Terrell, Luke Myers, Maureen Barnes, Molly Wartenabe, Chelsea Troutman, Marissa Woodman, Carrie Brown, Paul Yurkovitz, Grayson Buckingham, Kaylee LaRue, Jenna Jennison, and Megan Williams. The team leaders, Rietta Walker, Allison Hagan, Anna Kinder, and Nate Sanders. And I'd just like to say I'm also a member of that class. These classes are so valuable insofar as they take the community members, do a deep dive, look into the nonprofits, hospital, transportation, other things. And it takes good community members as well as corporate members. And I'd like to just say thank you to Platte Valley Bank, Compression Leasing Services, Black Hills Energy, and many others who help make these classes possible. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I noticed they kind of segregated from the Campbell County folks. Did you see how that happened? It just happens naturally. I don't know how that works, but great. It's just like redistricting. Yeah, thank you very much. So welcome. Glad you're here. Reading clerk now, if you don't mind.
House Bill 29, sponsored by Education, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4 Education, to whom was referred House Bill 29, Hathaway Scholarship Amendments, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Connolly, Harshman, Nyman, Newsom, Obermueller, Paxton, Summers. Excused, Representative Brown. Representative Paxton, Chairman. House Bill 30, sponsored by Education, School Finance, Increasing Cash Reserves, and Act relating to school finance. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4 Education, to whom was referred House Bill 30, School Finance, Increasing Cash Reserves, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Andrew, Connolly, Harshman, Nyman, Newsom, Obermueller, Paxton, Summers. Excused, Representative Brown. Representative Paxton, Chairman. House Bill 80, sponsored by corporations, campaign reports, amendments, an act relating to campaign reports. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, corporations, elections, and political subdivisions, to whom was referred House Bill 80, campaign reports, amendments, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Blackburn, Burt, Clausen, Duncan, Air, LeBeau, McGuire, Roscoe, Zwanitzer. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. House Bill 9, sponsored by Select Tribal, Economic Development Programs, Tribal Inclusion, an act relating to Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho tribes. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 9, Economic Development Programs, Tribal Inclusion, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Burkhart, Duncan, Air, Gray, Greer, Heiner, Sherwood, Western. Noes, Representative Bear. Representative Greer, Chairman. House Bill 45, sponsored by Minerals, Mine Reclamation Bonding, Voluntary Assigned Trusts, an act relating to environmental quality. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 45, Mine Reclamation Bonding, Voluntary Assigned Trusts. Respectful report, same back to the House with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Bear, Burkhart, Duncan, Air, Gray, Greer, Heiner, Sherwood, Western. Representative Greer, Chairman. House Bill 46, sponsored by Minerals, Partnership Challenge Loan Program Amendments, an act relating to the Wyoming Economic Development Act. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 46, Partnership Challenge Loan Program Amendments, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Bear, Burkhart, Duncan, Air, Greer, Heiner, Sherwood, Western. Noes, Representative Gray. Representative Greer, Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. So members, I'll just make a few comments. Good day's work today. I think tomorrow, depending on what we have for for amendments on the redistricting bill. We'll have another, every bill we can get on committee of the whole, we'll move them through, and then we're going to have a solid morning. I would expect a solid morning of introductions. We have second, third reading, and then quite a few introductions. I think I've got everybody's first choice of bills. They're going to be queued up in numerical order. They will get them posted on the website tonight, so you'll know if you're in that order. And then we'll, if we get through those, I think there's 27. For the 15 folks that brought no personal bills, gold stars, all gold stars. I was not one of them. So that's the first thing. Second thing, the resolutions, again, the resolutions for gentlemen who saved lives, Sweetwater County, and for our lost colleague, Leland Christensen, are in the LSO office. Hunger Initiative, many of you expressed interest in contributing to that. If you still are interested in that, please see Pam. Last, fourth thing, caucus. We need a caucus tomorrow, a House caucus for the Management Council. Has to be done by the 5th day of the 2022 budget session. So I believe we will have a location for that, but it's a whole House caucus, and we'll do it upon adjournment. Upon adjournment. So there'll be more information on that. We'll announce the place. We'll try to make it close by, like, you know, the nearest brewery. I mean, close within the building. My apologies. That was a bad joke. My apologies. And then the final thing is, folks, there's a lot of folks here, have families here and everything, and we're getting quite a stock of sandwiches because of this kind of double food thing going on. So if you want to take some food, that fridge in the break room, there is lots of food in there, sandwiches and salads and things. Take a couple home, get utilization of that, because we're gonna have to clean the fridge out. We'll donate it to a good cause, but if there's anything in there you want, please take that out tonight and it'll get donated tomorrow morning. So with that, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, the 16th day of February, 2022.
Committee announcements. Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, will meet tomorrow, 15 minutes after noon adjournment, to take up House Bills 13, 16, 17, and 18.
Thank you. Chairman Harshman.
Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, will meet tomorrow, February 17th, in Capital Extension Room number 3 at 9:15 a.m., 9:15, to hear one bill, House Bill 65.
Thank you. Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, will meet at 8 o'clock in the morning to finish House Bill 3, and then we'll work House Bill 2 and House Bill 73.
Further announcements? Any further announcements? Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So the committee of the whole list for tomorrow will be 9, 45, 30, 46, 33, 29, and 80. Oh. Okay, 33 is off there, so I'll repeat. 9, 45, 30, 46, 29, and 80.
Thank you. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Appropriations will meet upon adjournment today to hear House Bill 6 and 79. We will meet at noon recess tomorrow to hear House Bill 34 and House Joint Resolutions 5 and 6.
Thank you. Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Judiciary Committee will meet upon noon recess tomorrow, the 17th, in room number 1 to hear House Bill 10, House Bill 86, House Bill 83, and House Joint Resolution 1.
Thank you. Further announcements? Further announcements? Seeing none. Members, all those in favor of the majority floor's motion that with the House adjourn until 10 a.m. Thursday, February 17th, 2022, please say aye. All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you for your good work.